Get ready for a deep dive into the greatest labyrinth of information, revisionist history, covering the hidden legacy of an empire lost to history, the Great Tartaria. For the next 2 hours, your host Victor B will be clearing out the mud beneath your feet to give a clearer view of ancient and modern history. And there's no turning back once you open that door. With Great Tartary, many mysteries vanish, while other mysteries unknown surface. Technasma, catastrophism, pseudo-timelines, recent civilization resets, Phoenicia and the Moorish legacy in America, all will be explained. Every Saturday from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time, you can expect to listen to this unfolding narrative which seeks to explain the origin of ancient and modern civilization, and how it was hijacked, and how we can retrieve the lost information of our advanced Tartar ancestors. With your host, Victor Boog, on Radio Tartary in Studio B.
Footage that I have, and that's how I do it. I chose to share, and for a long time I was driven by other creators that really put me in some kind of matrix, and after I realized I needed to relearn and to change some of the stuff I've learned. So that happened to me a lot. I'm talking about, for example, the megalith section, you know?
Yes,
And
indeed.
yeah, that took me a long time, as for many other things, but that's what is interesting, is to re-question yourself, so, and relearn. But what I do in my videos is all my photos, and I try to keep good quality. And on my last video, I tried to catch up and change in my narrative. So I think a lot is interesting to come this year. Yes.
Wow, yeah, that sounds very interesting. Hugo, he has a very good series on Antiquitech in Amsterdam, which
Hey.
is and Versailles as well. Yeah, you have visited a lot of the Tartarian hotspots, so to speak.
Yes, and you guys have discovered so many star forts, and you made a starfort.org, guys, if you want to check that out on the internet. It's
Well, we
basically
didn't, sorry to correct you there, Hugo. We didn't make the
oh, but you're
website.
working on it. You're working on it.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and that's pretty interesting in my opinion, that so many people map that much star forts, proof of ancient knowledge and union between states and everything. So that's really proof there on our maps. So well done, guys. And by the way, I am living in France, so I can travel around Paris and film stuff. I'm working right now on Versailles, which is becoming quite logic to me that it is not Louis XIV. That one thing interesting talks to me is that it says that it's the rêve des grandeurs in French. It means the dream of the big stuff, you know, the huge stuff, you know. And but in that way, you say is a dream, you know. It doesn't mean that it needs to be exact, you know. So we know from the fact that the tunnels and the water system are older and could be very much Phoenicians, thought to be Romans, but it ended up that it could be Phoenicians. And these people were pretty big. That's why they made, I mean, a little bit bigger than us. So that's explain why they made a huge palace like this, and perhaps some construction have been made by Louis XIV or whatever, but I'm trying to figure out now as I'm living in Versailles. So yeah, for the French part, guys, yeah, you got me in the French parts, at least now.
Right. Well, thank you for that introduction, Hugo, and also we're not forgetting you, Peter, who is also here.
Yeah.
Can you
my
explain?
Pleasure. The squirrel. He's got a squirrel with him.
Yeah, he has a squirrel. Peter, can you please explain to the audience how we may know you in the Tartaria community, and what kind of various names you have went under, and what type of research you've been doing?
Yeah. First of all, appreciate you having me, Victor. And social media has been a neat adventure for me personally. Back, I'd say when I first got into Tartaria and whatnot, we're looking around October of 2018, maybe September. And it started pretty light in the beginning, but it was very exciting. It was just getting talked about in some communities, just the people that stay very open-minded, that allow for anything to be a possibility, are the people that are kind of on the fringes of, the forefront of what we want to, knowledge in a way of discovering truth, because those are the people that have the least amount of filters, the least amount of bias, so their eyes are very open. So it turned into, a local adventure is how everybody started very much in the beginning of this story here in this time. And I'm not sure, how everything came about in the world of Tartaria and its excitement, because it seems like, I've been trying to pinpoint it, if it was like some kind of narrative that was kind of pushed kind of in the backgrounds, or if it was something that was truly discovered and was spread, kind of virally because of the people getting excited about it. And it's a pretty awesome story. So I'm pretty optimistic. So it's obviously a natural curiosity. Everybody can look around and see all these similar structures in their areas that they live. I mean, there's really not a part of the world that doesn't have this type of architecture, this grandness to it, this precise alignment. It's this knowledge was had around the world, and it was expressed in each culture, and everybody in there where the people gathered, these weren't necessarily where the people lived, which is why I don't think you find like living systems, sewers, and all the things like kind of like that. I think you find more gathering, ceremonial, like the original reasons for these nodes on the earth would have been, like the star forts, like they're sacred, they're geometric alignments of certain just patterns and energetic and magnetic makeups that, and I have another theory there is if how did the star forts kind of pop out and whatnot, and are they all man-made, or is this something similar to a crop circle nature where it just kind of manifests? We know so little, so I mean, just it's a very big story, but mainly now I'm in Kentucky, kind of in a neat area, kind of where the old, I don't know, there's a lot of changes where I'm at. I'm a little northeast of the New Madrid area. I live in a town called Crestwood, which is right where bubbles start popping up in terms of the land. We have areas around us called sulfur. It's a very clay, copper, sulfury, oily kind of seedy area where there's just like bubble, like pressure. It seems like we're on a giant chunk of clay that floats, is really my impression of it. And we're on limestone.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
We're on a ton of limestone. So this area that I'm at, right in southern Indiana, all the limestone in the United States that goes into what we call the Tartaria infrastructure is all from southern Indiana, because this limestone was a special type of limestone. And it kind of is the same if you look at silica in terms of what the pineal and the brain is made out of. They're almost trying to simulate this in terms of physicality on the geometric nodes, and they know that this type of chemistry and it's like a piezoelectric system. If you stack something on a node at an angle with density, you get this stuff called electromagnetism coming out of it. I don't know, I'm not sure. There's a lot to it, but there's huge quarries, and like they pretty much set up train rail systems right into these quarries, and they go all the way to New York, they go all the way to Chicago, they funnel to all the city areas, and you can see that they were just chunking out these huge chunks of limestone, and then they're building this system. It's like a computer. It's a crystalline hex fucking Well, there's the squirrel jumping around. My bad. One sec here. Let's see if I can put the video on right now real quick. Let me see here. One sec. And he'll kind of run by and come play. So
Just a quick reminder, no swearing. I know that was a slip
my
up.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. My bad.
I forgot to tell you guys because I know you're such good guys who would never do that.
Yeah, of course,
so yeah,
of course.
guys, just remember that. Keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
But please
I've
continue.
got a lot of different viewers, so I totally understand there. Anyways, I'm sorry. So Kentucky area right now, I find a lot of geological events that had happened. There's an area very close to me called Newcastle, Kentucky, and I discovered about maybe 7 months ago in the fall. They have this building there, and it's a huge, almost like a clock tower, central courthouse style of building. And they're doing some serious construction on it, and they've dug all the way around the building about 15 feet down, and you can just see the old stonework from, just this beautiful lime and sandstone, just kind of, I don't know if it's lime or sand. I'm assuming it's limestone because it's different than the sedimentary stuff in the area, but they're just, in terms of construction modern day, they're just removing all these large rectangular blocks and they're stacking them up out in the lawn and they're replacing it with concrete and steel I-beams. I mean, it's pretty sad. I mean, seeing this, ancient, and everything had meaning. You don't just throw iron on a special spot on the earth, and I don't know, it's all about intention, and it's very much the meaning behind something, and the meaning nowadays that's getting replaced it's hard to watch. I mean, we're very lucky to be here in these times and see this transition, and really hope depends upon brave souls like this community that are constantly observing. And when you observe in terms of consciousness, it's known in the human, it's known in consciousness, it goes to the inside, which goes to all of what we call humanity and consciousness, period. It's downloaded into it.
That's very interesting, because I kind of wanted to segue into quantum mechanics and history today, just for a little bit. If you can humor me for a bit.
Absolutely.
So quantum mechanics, there's an advanced form of the double slit experiment, which came out in 1999, made by a guy named Kim. It's called the late choice quantum eraser. And what is very interesting about this experiment, and I have a very detailed rundown of the experiment showing you the implications. It's really mind-blowing when you get into it, because it implies that you need a knower to have matter in the universe. It actually proves that unequivocally, because the only thing that is varied in the experiment is knowledge of the which path, and it's done by the experimental setup. But I don't want to get too much into that. I want to get into the implications, but because the implications for history is very interesting, and it will get us into the Mandela effect and timeline shifts.
It's exciting stuff. It is. That's what synchronicity is in itself. It's all tied together. These people that built these systems, or the nature that built this system, however this system was put together, it was put together intelligently. And it's not random. When you start looking at the patterns within, that's the real story. That is the stuff that spans through time. That the patterns are when you start you move past. So you start as the animal, and then you hope to be the man, to be the human. And then as the human, you strive to be the God, the self, the knower, the creator, the beer, the I am. And part of that, really, that transition happens when you go from outwardly, download of experience and knowledge to inwardly watching how the world around you triggers things inside you. That is very much what all of reality springs from, is that inner world and that inner realm. So, the world of intuition becomes a very central tool to light, what light is, what the science is, what the knower is, intention is going to be it's going to be the true choice maker. It's not about in your mind, your thoughts saying, I choose to do this, or the observer is really the intention behind the action. That is what the ecliptic is, in a sense, because we're given
very
all this.
Interesting you would say that, because the whole thing about the delayed choice quantum eraser is choice. It is free will, and it's whether you have the knowledge or not that makes the wave function collapse, and that is what is proven now in quantum mechanics. And that means that you cannot have matter from nothing or from matter itself. So that means by the exclusion of the ontological primitives that science proves the creator now, guys. And I'm not at least embarrassed to say that.
Right.
We can say that science proves creation now, and I can give you the details if you want, because
I'm
it's
really
undisputed.
interested. You talk about it the last time.
Victor.
Hugo, I talked about it.
I'm excited that you're in that area pretty heavily right now, because it's a very, because you can kind of side skirt everything, or you can just go right to the source. And that stuff I think that you're looking at right now is you're really looking at that center source. And if you can hone it in and understand it and wrap your mind around it, I think it just makes everything make sense, and very, it brings it together. It's just a very central philosophy, is the story of light, the story of what light is. I mean, it's really what it's about. And
it is.
Quantumly too. It's, you got to get out of that linear mindset. There's a certain location, or there's a certain place and time like that. That's too human centered. You got to get out of that left brain. You got to go off into the right, the deep unseen magnetic, and you got to let the possibilities spring forth. You can't try to control it with the human. You just got, really, your only job as the human is just to get the heck out of the way. I mean, you're going to get the heck out of the way, and you're going to let what is the true being come through without hindrance. And that is what we learn to do through developing what we call our character. The more we develop our character, the more we can live by the true logos and reason. And that logos and reason is very much built around compassion and love, because we get our whole system given to us through love. We don't get what we have right now out of necessity. There's not some rule somewhere saying you have to keep giving this life to these humans. It's just not how it works. It's given to us from love. It's given to us through choice. And we're made in the image. So what does that tell you about us in terms of, what, and look around you, who do you give life to? What do you give life to? What kind of habits do you have in your life that you give life to? What kind of people do you support around you that depend upon you? What kind of people depend upon, your moods or your emotions or the way you're feeling? I mean, there's a lot of unseen dependence in terms of energy. And it's a very, the whole word behind the parent is parent. There's a couple key words there. It's what we're playing with is really, it's not ours from this perspective. I mean, it is ours in a sense, because we are the all, but we very much are, it's good to remain humble and grateful and blessed, because it's really the only, we learn every single day, and you guys both know it. I mean, how many times do you have to keep rearranging what you think you know? Because it just keeps getting evolved. The more you look at things, you're like, wow, okay.
It happened to me recently. Red pills, right?
Yeah. Tell us about that, Hugo. What happened to you?
Oh man, for a long time I thought like the Anunnakis, Nibiru, and everything. And it happened that I made more research, and I learned that the levels and the extra dimensional but intraterrestrial stuff, it'd been a year really I touched to that. But the red pill was really like my own research, like Petra, the old cave. What I learned about, you talk about geology, I made a couple of research on petrification and silification, fulgurite, and those ancient weapons such as the Vajra in India, and it's quite linked. So silification is linked to fulgurite, and that's explained like a quick electrical petrification, and that really helped me to understand how it was, and understand more, and to change my narrative basically, because in the megalith section I never heard any Brian they say is melted. I never said them talking about petrification, you see. So it's really about us. And
Right.
the other time, Victor, you said atheism and pseudoscience, goodbye, hasta la vista, physicalism. That was really good. And while the Occam Razor is the independent research, and all of us really making this research, and to confront basically this proclamation of science. And I never heard any geologists talk about all of this, so that's really interesting to bring that up, you know.
Well, thank you. And the thing I want to add on to it, because physicalism is dead, when you record history, if you don't record it and something happens, it reverts back to becoming a probability distribution. It doesn't necessarily exist anymore. So you have to record everything for it to exist in history. It's really odd. If the information is lost and there's no possibility of knowing,
Yeah.
then you have interference, as you see in the double slit and also in the late choice quantum eraser. So what that means is, I would say, is that you could actually alter history, like actually alter the reality of the universe by destroying history. So if they destroy history too much, they may make this reality too unstable.
Oh,
Are
they
you
tried.
seeing
They
the
tried so
implication?
hard. They tried so hard at it.
No, I don't think so. I think this means that they must keep everything. And that is the purpose of the Vatican Library, to keep
Oh, wow.
everything.
Yeah.
So the possibility of knowing is still in the universe. That
Yeah, that's right.
means that the history is still intact. If the history is still intact, they have more control. If they lose the information and the possibility of knowing, then the reality gets unstable. That is basically what I think is, yeah, the logical implication of the the late choice quantum eraser and quantum mechanics, and it's really mind-blowing, because it may actually give us some answers, some real scientifically backed answers to what happens in timeline shifts, and what has perhaps happened with this emergence of Tartarian imperial information, which just seemed to come out of nowhere. And it was always there. You can go back into the old encyclopedias and see that it was still mentioned there. For instance, in the Encyclopedia Britannica in the 1700s, there are numerous entries on the Tartarian Empire, listing provinces, kingdoms, princes under the empire, and regions and regional capitals. It's really detailed, and you can gather all these encyclopedias and all these dictionaries and put the information together. Personally, I've found this type of information in over 10 different languages, some of which
Everywhere,
I
man.
read.
Everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Everywhere.
It's
My
undeniable.
grandmother, in my grandmother's mind, she talked to me about Tartaria, Anna Karenine, and Tolstoy, the Kamarov brother, and some sort of prosperity in those time and everything. So it was really interesting talking to my grandmother. Shout out to her.
That's cool.
Shout out to Hugo's grandmother. Yeah, that is warranted.
She experienced the war, and she was a little kid when the Gestapo came in the village, killed some of the dudes, everything. But she said the German army wasn't so bad. It was really the guy in all black came, and it was really nasty. But yeah, just a little anecdote, as we say in French. Just a little story.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good anecdote,
Yeah,
I would say. What do you think, Peter?
Yeah, I think I think that's one of the keys really for us as the younger generations right now is we live in a world where you can't really trust anything besides the horse's mouth anymore, going to the actual experience itself. And because we really got to start over and just go right to the source. And we need to go to these older people that are still here, and we need to, be willing to just sit down, have a cup of tea with them, chat for an hour or two, just ask them simple questions like, hey, what's the biggest difference you've seen in the world, from when you were a little kid to now? Or, hey, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen based upon what you've seen in the world so far? Or, hey, when you were a kid, what kind of stories did you hear about what the cities were, where they came from, and all these things? I mean, because they're back further. They have I've found that people born in the 1930s are very interesting to me. They are pretty much, they're kind of like an outspoken generation.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they're dying off right now because they're born in the 30s, so they're getting
Yes.
pretty old. But
Yes.
and a lot of them have been hit hard with things like dementia.
Yeah.
These are the people right before the TV generation, because once the 60s hit, man, they stole all the souls around the world with the television. I mean, once that thing launched, I mean, people they gave right up. I mean, they gave right up with actually critically thinking about anything themselves anymore. Everything kind of changed from there. I mean, even think of the days of the radio, how powerful that was. I mean, we still had a good thing going with the radio. And then when the television hit, there's something about sight. And sight is the most powerful sense. We use it to pretty much claim most of the knowledge we think we know is what we see with our eyes. And it's a very dangerous tool to log information in with, because we can only see with our eyes 3% of what we call the visible, or the 3% of the spectrum. There's 97% of the information you're not able to take into account with your eyeballs.
I think I think the relation is a bit. I think it's a very, very minute part of the spectrum we can see. I think it's way below 3%. I may be recalling incorrectly. But I'm in the in the 0.1% perhaps.
I wonder if it represents the part of a particle, or in terms of the creator, it represents a point of division where you can't divide anymore. You've reached the core particle itself, and it cannot be divided further down from here.
That would be the Planck size, or the Planck number. They say what happens if you try to divide a Planck size thing, it actually disappears. It vanishes.
Wow, and think of us, think of that word Planck, think of us as humans here on a planet, PLAN. It's just a neat word. And then think of us really as being light, as shadows. I mean, because we're playing in smoke and shadow and mirrors is really what our light's doing here. We're veiled with a body. You can't see anything because everything in number and letter here is veiled with the body, because that holds the vibration of it. Its very essence. It's a very beautiful system. It's really the other side of the light axis. You have two ends of the spectrum, and really I think what it is where do two ends of the spectrum meet? They meet in the middle. And where does life occur? Life occurs in the middle. Look at the planet Saturn. Saturn is represented with the green ray, and then Saturn is also represented as the silica, or the bone. And then you would have Mars as the muscle. And what is Mars? Mars wraps around the silica and carries it forward, moves it. It causes motion. And that's a very, the lower, not, I shouldn't use lower and higher, but the animal side of Mars is that very animal, emotional, reactive desire. Like, I'm hungry, I'm going to go eat food. Like, I'm going to go make a baby. Very central life-based desires. And then the higher side of Mars is the Scorpio nature. Its night aspect, and that would be it's coming in touch with the feminine, the Mars becoming the human. And then, from there, that's why it's Ophiuchus and Scorpio and the eagle and the snake. It represents the battle with sound, light versus sound. What you can see with versus what you can't see. You know, the deepest things come out of the unseen. You get to face your biggest battles, the skeletons in your closet. Like, what do you carry in your soul? You know, all those deep things you never talk about. That's your Scorpio nature. That's your things to overcome. And that's why Pluto in itself exalts in Scorpio, because when you do this, Pluto in itself represents to me character, because everything past Jupiter or everything past Saturn is beyond the human, beyond the body. Saturn represents 1 through 7, and an octave is complete with number 8. We've got Neptune, Uranus, Pluto. So that really shows you right there that those are things that are generative principles, things beyond the body that create the life inside. It's the cave of creation. So you need a central point of creation and you need a wall. So echoes and a sound chamber can be built. You live in a sound barrier. That's why the Big Dipper or the Big Bear is such a central constellation in the north. It's a set of 7 stars that come from the one that doesn't move, Polaris, and we live in a sound barrier. Things that stem out from that central, I mean, that exalts when we hit Cancer, and Cancer represents the senses and what happens in the north. Everything feels real good around June 21st, summertime's about here, and you know, it's very much a real feel-good time. It's just really what this place is all about. Then we go through the fall, and you know, of course, we get to the winter. Here we are, Capricorn, and you know, we're at the other side. We're at the dark feminine. We're at the coldness, the binding, the restriction when you put things into form. But I'm going to stop.
Do you know, Peter, if we could relate astrologically any sign or any quality to the country of Tartaria, do you know which sign it would be?
Oh, okay. Yes, I think Leo, the tribe of, would it be Judah?
Right.
You know, that in itself, because I think that maybe the original lion was the phoenix or the griffin, just a different thing that represents
Phoenicia.
fire.
Yeah,
Phoenicia
just
also.
look at Harry Potter. The symbol for Gryffindor isn't exactly a griffin, and you have that or on the end. It's the gold, Gryffindor. So it's the golden griffin, and the golden griffin is a theme you can find in old world books. There is a book about the griffin as a symbolism book, and it talks about the golden griffin, and it's very interesting. But also, Leo is one thing, but the reason why Leo is related to it, to Tartary, is because according to all serious astrologers I have been looking at, they all say that Tartaria and Asia, that would be, you know, Siberia, Russia, and also Scandinavia, is astrologically angled to Aquarius, the sign of knowing. This is where we're coming into. So maybe there is a relation between the new age of Aquarius and Tartarian knowledge coming to light. I'd say it's very good connection.
Now I see what you were talking about. Yeah.
That is a good representation. I mean, it's a very, if you think of Aquarius, it's the humane sign, and then it's also the water bearer. And sometimes people get confused and they think of water, but the water bearer is really the air sign, and this is very much means electricity. It's a positive air sign. It's fixed air. It's electricity in my eyes. The 2 waves are the waves. They represent the hair of the woman, which back in the day represents the electricity. And during the matriarch, the hair was very celebrated. It's your fine
just
quality.
to confirm that, Peter, what is what is another name for Saturn in Hebrew?
Israel.
Yeah, that's right. In Old Phoenician, Saturn is called Israel, but in Hebrew, modern Hebrew, he is El, and that is electricity. And also, who is the ruler of Aquarius again?
Yeah, and then in tropical, they say it's Saturn, but really the high ruler is Uranus, because Uranus exalts there, and Uranus represents willpower, which is knowing how to use the electricity. It's having access.
Yeah, so it's heaven on earth. It's the heaven on earth represented there in the Tartarian Empire. Yeah.
So you guys know a lot more than me of astrology, but I wanted to speak about languages. You know, Magyar, Hungarian, linked to the Aboriginal in Australia and also to the Incas in South America, everything. But I made my own research, and one of the red pill I needed to swallow this time after going to the holy place, that the very possible Jerusalem will be in fact in Scotland. That's a possibility I don't exclude. And the Celts, the real Celt heritage and legacy, which is Phoenician, that was a huge red pill to swallow. Myself being to the Jerusalem of the Khazar, for the people who don't know, Victor made research on the Khazars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Khazar, I don't know much about them, but that idea.
Yeah, Khazars. Yeah, they occupied Canaan at one point. It's actually the Ashkenazi of the Bible, which would be a grandson of Japhet, one of the eldest son of Noah, which is Japhet. And from Japhet came Gog and Magog and all the Tartars. And all Japhet's 7 sons occupied Asia and Europe. So that is even the Bible points to this Tartarian, Celtic, Gothic empire
Scotland also.
Yeah, being in Asia and Europe. Sorry.
Yeah, Scotland. Yeah, that's crazy, and that's really interesting. I'm really interested into that, actually.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You said Phoenician. I've been to a pretty unique Phoenician site where I grew up in New Hampshire, which is part of New England over here, I guess. And there's a site in Salem, New Hampshire. They call it America's Stonehenge. And it had an episode once on TV, I think on the History Channel, probably back in the day when, I was really winding down my use of the television, and I ended up on pretty much the Discovery Channel and the History Channel. And I remember that show America Unearthed. And this is how I found this place. I end up going up there, and
Wow.
It's an old Phoenician site. They found all these tablets with Phoenician writing on it saying like Tubal from the Canaanites. They've found old Phoenician coins, and then all the monuments, all the granite that they used to erect the columns with, all line up to the solstices, mark the big patterns of the moon. It's just a very old, and really all the stone walls of New England in general is considered one of the, if not the largest megalithic on Earth, is the stone wall system of New England.
Wow.
Pretty just neat
Yeah,
there.
there's
But
a lot of stone walls in America. There's also talk of giant walled lakes. So some of your big lakes may be walled all around them, or a bit below the surface of ancient times. I have found some old articles suggesting that.
In France, the caroms, or those 2 column lines, I forgot what they are, but those are very much like the stone walls of New England when they do those standing stones all in a row. Somewhere
the dolmens. The dolmens
the
are
dolmens.
everywhere, man. They connect just as much as the star forts worldwide civilizations. There's no doubt about it.
Cool.
And besides the dolmens, you have also the Viking mounds of Denmark, and you have mounds in America, of course, by the mound builders. And you have star forts, and you have articles talking about that these mound builders, whose origins are obscure, they build both military fortifications and these primitive mounds. So star forts in America in the 1800s are not regarded as European or colonial, but mound builders built them.
Yeah,
Isn't
which
that
is neat. If you look back on the original meaning behind heaven, it's got a couple neat words in it. Heave in. So the whole being able to be the earth rising up out of the water. Just as the coral does in the ocean, you constantly stack dead bodies on top of dead bodies, and that's how you get land. Anyways, long story short, heave in and the whole association with mound builders around the world, I think it's a very central part of an original philosophy here, that we build up in certain areas where we know that water goes up and down. We know that being up out of this water is preservation. We literally live on the backs of our ancestors. They give us life through this very principle.
And I wanted to come back to the world fairs. The world fairs that happened in the end of the 1900s and everywhere in the world. Correct? Or the end of the 1800s, right?
Yeah, I would love that. Would actually be
the world fairs. Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool.
the world fairs, man, and the expositions.
And I wanted to say something about my grandmother again, because I asked her about them because the narrative said they were plaster. That's why they destroyed them in Paris, you know. But it happened that my grandmother, father, I think, went there, and it didn't mention any plaster. So there were real buildings, and that's a red pill people really need to swallow. And I will say another
Yeah,
one,
they
that how they created the stones is not like carried by ships, and of course it's stones mixed with cement. That's why it's geopolymer, right? That's a theory, right, of the making
yeah,
of the.
geopolymers, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's all real. It's all real. The research that we make, and even my grandmother confirmed it to me to this. So yeah, I just
That's
wanted to
very
say that.
interesting, man.
No problem.
Albeit anecdotal, I find it very interesting because this is some of the things we need to ask the old people who may
Yeah,
still have some
definitely, man.
information
Definitely,
because
man.
they're not gonna go out there and tell anybody about they haven't made the connections themselves. They may not even care, or they may care, they may want to speak, but haven't found the guts yet. So yeah, let's
Yeah,
ask
of
our
course,
elderly people.
of course, but they will not swallow any red pills. I don't consider talking too much deeper conversation about with them.
I'd say
Sometimes I
use
don't
their
know.
All right.
My
use their
grandmother, like even coming down from the monkeys or the round, not spinning, everything, like she will not understand all of this, but she will not even get interested.
Oh,
She say, she
Hugo,
say,
I forgot to say another thing. We cannot talk about that either.
oh, all right,
No worries, man.
okay, no problem.
Yeah, I think it's important to use what the old people might not, the older people might not be into Tartaria necessarily, or some of them are. Some of them actually heard those words in school as they were still part of the textbooks, but
Yeah, that's what I
um,
said earlier. Yeah.
but also at some point, I mean, they use what they know, use what they saw as the horse's mouth, almost as just data, raw data. I mean, we're very much in a world of data now, and I'm not saying we have to act like AI and just consume data everywhere. But when you hit a situation like talking to older generations, just use your own wisdom to see what they did have access to. Tailor your questions in a very specific way that would lead to the kind of answer you're looking for. Like, hey, grandma, remember back when you used to go to when we'd hang out at grandpa's house, and grandpa, remember how he'd take me down in his basement and we'd do woodworking? Well, there was that weird window thing down there, or that door that was all bricked off. Did you ever know what that door was? You could just do some general stuff like that. You could always just, hey, when you used to go to this town, how many people did you see? Was it a really crowded city? You could just get some
Yeah, more
idea.
that in my case, more this one in my case.
Hmm. And then no, they love to talk about it. They love, because
Yes,
nowadays,
they will speak for hours, mate. Speak
yeah,
for hours.
they
Yeah.
will, because nobody really wants to hear it. I mean, everybody would rather stare at their phone or go watch some news show that came out. Nobody wants to listen to, what happened back in the 30s, 40s, 50s. I mean, that's a pretty key error. All through those years, we went away from the gold standard. We had the atomic clock come in 1944. I mean, you had a lot of manipulation going on behind the scenes of getting us out of our rhythms. We really, I guess, since 1932, nobody has technically made an income anywhere, because people don't get paid in gold and silver, precious metals, or commodities. They get paid in debt notes. So they actually get paid wage. And it's neat, because if everybody did I don't really want to go too deep into that, but our whole core system has been manipulated, very much so. And I think that the older people, a lot of the things I look for nowadays when I get to talk to them, I try to look at when they were little kids. I like to ask about their experiences with their grandparents, so that way I can get
Oh
a
yeah,
sense.
that's good.
because you can look way far back into the almost, the mid 1800s on some of that stuff right there. And that's a really key time. Like that's once again, I don't think we understand the Civil War in America, the other wars that went on. These are all placeholders for events that were happening. The word media. We, as part of the Tartaria researchers, people have found the roots of that family and seen its Persia roots. The media and the news that goes around has been very much control of consciousness for a very long time. And a lot of these wars that we've been told their names and what happened are very much not the case. And when you actually start looking at the details and asking questions, you find out a very different story from the people that were actually there to experience it. I mean, it's pretty much nonstop. You just see rape, pillage, and plunder, a stealing of resources, and a changing of history. And then anything that pops up that would go against that narrative, you're just going to go ahead and slander that until the cows come home, and then, cue mass consciousness to support you, and you're done. I mean,
right.
Yeah, so that's what we all have to overcome, and that's not the easiest battle, but, the whole point of us being here at this time is we're the ones that can do it. The universe doesn't put something it doesn't need in a place at a certain time when it needs something done. It puts the exact tool it needs. It's been honing for this exact moment. So all of us are very key cogs to the system of light, to what we are as our identities in the grand realm of light. It's a very beautiful story. We're the system busters. We're the ones that go in system after system, and we're like, look, they got this over here in this system. That's funny. You guys remember back, a long time back there, and of course we're not very linear, but we just use that as a joke. Remember when we already did that in that one system? Let's do it this way this time. I mean, it's a constant. We've learned as a core group of light to work together, to be attracted to the patterns within, and that's how we find each other. That's why we're never worried about losing each other, because we can always get back to each other through the patterns that are eternal. And that's the only way you can find your way home. That's it.
The age of knowing. And just the fact that Victor is in Denmark, I'm in France, and you're in the US, that's so cool, That's
Absolutely.
really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Time zones aside, we are connected through a very powerful invention and tool, and perhaps something very mystical to a lot of in the Tartarian community, the internet. Where does
the
it come
spider
from?
web, a web.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yep.
the web.
Arachnoid.
Yeah, weaving spiders come not here, as the slogan
Yeah.
for the Bohemian Grove says.
Yeah, but at least we're using it in a good way, We don't go to the groups like, I don't know, makeup groups or whatever. We go straight into interesting stuff, I mean? That's why, by the way, Facebook seems to shadow ban these days, a lot of notification. That I guess it works very fine for the rest of Facebook,
Yeah.
But the algorithm doesn't make the road easy for us, what I mean?
No,
Yeah.
it's true, man. Shadow bans and also just outright censorship is something that
I
very
think I
much
wanted
goes
to
on.
point it out tonight, just because today I noticed it. So
Yeah, it's the algorithm is ruthless and it doesn't
ruthless.
care.
Doesn't
Yeah,
care.
true.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to say something about a little bit more about the quantum mechanics thing. So I hope that my point came through, that if you actually destroy history, you may actually end up altering the physical universe that we find ourselves in. This may be experienced as a timeline shift. So I want to start a discussion. I want to impress this on the minds of our audience, that the Mandela effect may be this. It may be the destruction of information in the past that actually makes a lot of things that happened go back into being a probability distribution, as we would say in quantum mechanics. So if I can give you an example of how it works. If we go in the other direction into discovery, things not yet known, Let's say that we discover a new continent. No one knows about it. We go there to the beach, and we see on this beach no one has ever been at before. There's an island offshore, perhaps a kilometers, and we see this island, and we definitely see that it is an island, and it has small little palms on it, and it's very neat and fine and dandy. We then record that, and we travel back to civilization to tell our story. On our way back home, we tragically die in an accident. Doesn't really matter how. What then happens is that there was information about the island in the universe, and now that information has been lost. The books were burned. We died in a fire, let's say. There's no information about that island retrievable in the universe anymore. So we say another guy goes to the exact same spot and sees that to the exact same beach, right? Now the island does not need to be there anymore. And
That's
that
neat.
is, yeah,
I like
it's a
it.
probability. It could be there. It could be in another shape. It could not be there. That's the probability distribution. And
I think
that
all of
I
those.
wanted to highlight the uncertainty of by information, by excluding information, by making information not known anymore or lost, we could actually alter the universe. And I think it's not about wanting to do that. It's about keeping the universe intact. So what you do is that you frantically gather all information that you can, and you keep that safe, right? And then you use misinformation, and then you have an intact universe based on that information that you already have, and you can use your misinformation in your own little sphere of the universe.
Yeah, that's very good understanding. Mine was coming back to the days. I listened for a long time to Max Egan, you know that. And before the last time, one video he made didn't please to a lot of people. But anyway, he said about freedom. Yeah, the freedom you need to get back in power to this information. Yeah, we don't have this freedom, but it seems that it's getting out of their hands somehow because we're digging into it, and together we work as a web. Yeah. So yeah, people, just to say to the show, basically, who controls the past, controls your present, and controls your future. But since lots of research is made, and the Orcam razors and everything that I explained, Victor,
Yeah,
it could get out of their hands, and we could get back in control. But one thing is really important is freedom, you know.
yeah,
And it seems that everywhere in the world, people start to want to speak and everything, and we see the repression is pretty messed up, and you don't even want to go there because you're gonna be filmed, and they're gonna make footage of you, and they will put you on the list, and everything is all scary, you know, this situation in the world. But that's my point of view, you know, being
well,
French,
there
being
was a
French.
wise guy. Sorry to cut you off,
That's
Hugo,
all
but
right,
it
mate.
triggered
That's
something
right.
in me. There was a wise guy on YouTube who once said that the user is the used. And if you think about the slave and the master and that relationship, I would say that the master is more a slave than the slave is, because the master is not the master without the slave relationship. He needs to keep that relationship to be what he is, whereas the slave wants to get free from that relationship and can transform himself positively by getting out of it. So the master is more a slave than the slave is,
Yeah,
and the user is the used.
that's why they try to dumb the slave, you know, to dumb them. That's why they try so hard to dumb them.
Yeah, fear didn't work. If we go by standard history, keeping people as physical slaves and dominating things physically with force did not work out in the end,
No,
and
No.
it caused a backslash.
I can keep a
Yeah.
job and still do this radio show, videos, everything. I'm
Yeah.
powerful like that. Hey,
Put in both worlds easily. Yeah. 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 I want to
Well,
just real quick,
sorry.
Victor, on
Yeah,
your the quantum effect and how we can really, through this, them as a tool, almost using this to change our present, change our now. And I guess my ideas on this are, I think in the end, this is all going to come down to what is a thought, what is the mind, what are thoughts, and what do they do? What are the repercussions or the benefits for entertaining thoughts, for believing in them, knowing them, accepting them, playing with them, letting them spring into action? What are thoughts? So my understanding of this is that you can only, let's use disease as an example. You can only get something if you believe in it. So, for example, and I know this could offend, a lot of people, but
and make sure your thoughts are your own. That's really important.
Absolutely. I'll use my own example. So just let's use the yearly flu, for example. If you believe in something, like let's say you eat a certain type of food and deep in the background inside yourself that you're either poisoning yourself or you're doing something that will cause long-term chronic, things to go on. Now, my argument is that the actual physical action itself is not what will cause this over time to occur. It's the belief that this will over time occur. So, in a sense, if they can change the current narrative to get people to believe history either went a certain way or we sit in a different slice of time, Q, Age of Aquarius, and all this New Age stuff, then they can steer the ship, because the ship is steered by consciousness, by thought. The whole story of consciousness in itself is a story of the earth, a story of Uranus as the original father of consciousness and space, willpower, and then who was castrated by Saturn. And that would be taking Saturn, borrowing this stuff called consciousness from the father, which would have been Uranus, which is the white, which is the center of Pan, which is really the line between Capricorn and Aquarius. And then as you branch out right there, you get a Uranus and Saturn, or you get a double Saturn, depending upon how you look at it, either tropical or sidereal, or, a high or low nature of something. Anyways, Saturn's castrating time, castrating the father, was adding temporalness, adding a body. So we have something original, something eternal, something beyond the human, something that is not subject to depression or to regeneration, and it was castrated. It was taken and borrowed. And what is Saturn? It represents restriction, binding, coming together, making a body. It represents, that's what coldness is, freezing. It brings it down to a certain points of density, and then it has a body. Look at the story of
crystallizes water. Also.
Right, it does, a crystalline hex system. Anyways, so what I'm trying to get at here is thoughts are very, we live in a bubble, the ether, the consciousness, or the carbon. We live in a field of it. And inside this field, there's a little 10% that is visible, which is what we call, our reality here. And we are literally in the 10% portion that is visible. And that is the flashpoint. It's where visible matter comes in, and we all play in that world, and that's fine. It's amazing. It really it makes me think of our sun as being an isolated photon, and it's got a sister sun. And science has said, I know we don't really trust observable science, but in the sign of Capricorn, which would be our winter solstice area where we all came from, we're said to have a sister sun in that sign. And our sun, in this same double slit experiment, imagine this whole thing we're in is a large double slit, and you've taken and split everything into duality. And it's really neat to think about. It's neat to think about our sun here being one of the splits of the slit, and we literally play in that quantum reality of the slit experiment. And we're borrowing. Where do we get our life from, right? The sun, it grows all the food, it nourishes us, it gives us light, not necessarily heat. And I know there's a lot of arguments out there about where heat comes from. Does it come from an angle of light? Does it come from
Like
something
black
under?
sun?
Oh, that's a very interesting
Black
discussion.
sun?
Yeah, it is.
Well, some
It's
say the black sun, yeah, because some would say you go too far if you say cause and effect, the sun comes up and you feel heat. Well, I would
right.
agree, but is it exactly that the sun, and what is the sun exactly? Is
And
it the
what do we live on?
sun
A
that
ferrous magnet.
yeah, we
Like
don't even
we
have
could
proof
be
of
the
its
black sun.
physicality. We
What
cannot
would a black
prove it's a
sun do?
physical thing.
It would
Oh, sorry.
absorb the light. One sun would give the light, and the other one would almost be the one absorbing it. So that would be the body and the life almost. It's really beautiful and neat. But it could be
Yeah,
inside of us. Imagine what we term our spirit, our soul. I mean, when we say we're light, sometimes we think of this visible bright light, but what if it's a dark, black, cosmic, pearly, luminescent, soul matter, black goo material instead?
it could be
It's
action at a distance in every which way, as we can
right.
see. Quantum mechanics is it's very demonstrably throwing in our face that a lot of what is happening on the quantum level is just action at a distance based on what you can know and what you have knowledge of. It's
Right.
utterly insane, and that implies that you cannot have matter out of matter or matter out of nothing. And by exclusion of the ontological primitives, it proves creation. So science
Yep.
proves creation. I will keep reminding people that because the late choice quantum eraser is undisputed. There's no disputes. No one has a hidden variable theory to even consider. It's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to come back to Xerxes, the last show, I think in the part 4, actually. He mentioned the systematic method to keeping people from going outside and keep them deeper in their hole, away from the truth, from re-questioning and relearning. So it happened to me, and I learned it the hard way. I wanted to say to the people listening to us that it's really important sometimes to relearn, re-question. You don't need to know everything if you're in at that stage. That happened to me. So
Yeah, you won't be able to know all things. That is
no,
something that is
that's,
reserved for our creator.
I was
And
talking about some type of mindset, in
oh
the
yeah,
society,
yeah.
because yeah.
But truly, it is quite ironic that the atheists 10 years ago were saying science proves atheism and such, and now we have a complete 180 degrees turn, and now they're saying science don't prove anything
Yeah, but it's
because
real
now
hard. It's real hard
now
to
science is their enemy,
it's
and they
very
have
hard to
realized it.
speak about it, in a family conversation or whatever, because the lies are so deeply rooted to even people, to your parents or whatever. So, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes some people can know what I'm talking about here. It happens to me in my own family. So my mom, for example,
Yeah.
so the conversation are really about this, like we come from the monkey, whatever. So yeah,
You
you
cannot
know
do
what I'm saying?
anything. It's a choice they make. It's not that you are a variable in their choice. It's
Yeah,
just not gonna be that.
yeah. I'm
It's a
being
choice
called
they make.
stupid even. I'm being called stupid sometimes, but it's all right. Like I'm just questioning at the end. So
It's
yeah,
they're projecting. When they
yeah.
do
I
that, it's
agree.
the
I agree with you.
projection
Yeah.
of their own status, and they don't even know it. It's very psychological. You get into a lot of psychology intuitively just by going through this process. You will learn the psychology of the sheep, let's say, because
Yeah.
it's very repeated. It repeats in so many different ways, like the projection thing,
And
and also
the real
the
truth
cognitive
cannot.
dissonance.
Sorry, mate, I cut you. The real truth
Oh, no
cannot
problem,
be
mate.
told. The real truth cannot be told. It needs to be realized. So one time I say
Yeah.
something, even sometimes they can come back and question, and that's a better mentality. But sometimes the conversation becomes hot because, oh wow, you touch me in that point, like, okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's like the Mr. Smith effect in the Matrix,
Hmm.
where if Neo is threatening the Matrix, there comes Mr. Smith in one of the regular humans in the program, right? He can become any one of them. And that's how I
Yeah.
visualize what happens when you trigger people around the dinner table that is the Mr. Smith effect. It's not actually them. So cut them some slack.
Oh yeah. I mean, their whole system, they have a lot to lose. I mean, we live very much nowadays in a system of money, a system of profit. So, I mean, science, they're only going to tell you what's true where the money and the grants flow to. I mean, they're not,
Exactly.
and whoever has the grant money are going to be the ones, they get to dictate what is called truth and what gets published and what's a successful peer review and whatnot, not the people that actually have the truth. And that's where it's all going to stream from. Like you said, it's going to come from the individual themselves. The truth isn't known, it's realized, it's felt, it's experienced. It's something that is undeniable because you carry it with you. You have, you don't, I mean, when you change a tire on your car over and over through the years, and you've gone through flat tires and you've gone through things that can go right and go wrong, and a tire change, you at some point can say, yeah, I can change a tire. You can't really say too much about things until you've experienced them firsthand and played with them. You can. It's okay to say, "Hey, I've got this theory," or there's these cool ideas out there. Like even for me, I'm very big into astrology. It's very much my goal to be a pure astrologer and to hone the science in and just get the human out of the way and let this science just be shown and speak and help people. But I mean, it's I don't know. I mean,
but what we talked about seems to be linked to conformism. What is right to think, what is not right. Once again, always like this. So yeah, I like to say that a lot, that because it's really true. What is right to think? Who made these rules? Like what is right to question? Like it mess with me sometimes, but that's just me, maybe.
And I think most people nowadays, it comes down to intellectual laziness. People just really don't want to think. I mean, they just don't. I mean,
Definitely.
we're in a use it or lose it system. If you don't use what you have, you're not going to be given more of it. I mean, when it's pretty much like, the story out of the freaking Bible. Sorry, out of the Bible. I mean, the creator comes to see what each thing did with what it was given, and the one who pretty much ignored it and did their own experience, they got their own direct knowledge from within, and the ones that tried to make a material profit to show that they had gained so they could gain favor were the ones that truly wasted their experience. So I mean, and really what it's all about is understanding, you have a very special system you've been given. It's what a biophysical luminescent crystalline hexagonal harmonizer. There's just so many things. It's such a, I mean, and we want to throw it all away for some 4G, 5G. I mean, come on. The real technology here is the human and its environment. I mean, where it's a library key, and in order to get into the library and to read the books, you need to have the library key. And not every human is a library key, because if you're not seeing the correct information in the library, I mean, it's a multi-dimensional library, so you're going to get the story that you came to experience and read and develop as a soul. It's such a huge school of energy here. It's a co-creation. I mean, we have the real power within us, and they're doing everything in their power because it's only going to get stronger right now. The more you see them kick, wiggle, fight, scream and come out with all their cool new toys and technology, it's going to get better. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I love being able to use the internet, connect with souls. I'm not just technology bashing here. I very much participate in this system, and you have to use the system you're given. So I don't have any qualms with it. I try to just do my best with, just doing my own creation. I mean, if I'm creating it, if I'm participating in it, I'm okay with it. So, it's all about your personal decisions and choices. I play with what I want nowadays, and I let go to the wind what goes to the wind. And that's pretty much most of what you would call technological electronic devices. And I just try to stay away from them. I mean, things like squirrels, they're a lot safer. They got a real natural magnetic field to them. I don't feel like I'm losing my light by holding a squirrel. I feel like I'm gaining light. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why
so
I'm trying to work with animals at this moment.
no, I saw your zoo stuff. I mean, that's
Yeah,
you just feel, and there's many wise philosophies that say you can tell. I think it's a part of the Buddhic philosophy that you can measure where a human is
natural
at.
reserve. Sorry, I'm cutting you,
Yeah,
but natural
sure.
reserve I would love better, much better.
That would
Natural reserve. But I take what is given to me. You know what I'm saying, to learn.
absolutely. But yeah, based upon how man treats animals is how you measure man, because you can know what stage they're at in terms of their consciousness development. I
Yeah.
mean, you hit a certain stage, and I mean, these aren't just some worthless animals below you that you just do what you want with. I mean,
Exactly, that's the impression I have, but I'm still learning, so I have to take what is given to me. Sometimes life you don't go straight to what you wanted. You need to make your own path.
yeah, these are tribes of energy, tribes of knowledge. I mean, all of
You need
these
it,
are all
yeah.
beings and entities and groups of consciousness. Like there's something it's like to be a seal and to be in a group
I
of
learned a
others.
lot, man. The Anyway, because I cannot travel and go to Africa or whatever, but I'm surrounded by exotic animals. So in the end, it's pretty cool. Utopically, you can think it's not right or whatever, but the real truth is that realistically, the natural habitats of the animals are perturbed. People kill them and everything. So utopically, you could release them, but nowadays it's pretty complicated.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
you do the best you can, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
they're giving a lot of people love, you know. A lot of people go to something like a zoo not to, feel bad for the animals because they're out of their natural environment, but it's just a place to remind people that,
It
hey,
depends. Sometimes they're good zoos, sometimes they're bad zoos.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good point. It reminds
Yeah.
me of the movie Pi, where their family was part of like that zoo thing, and
Yeah.
and I
It's
don't
never
know.
perfect. I don't think it's ever perfect because you put them into cages, but that's just because this show is about to be real, not talking nonsense.
Right.
Yeah. The cage thing really bugs me. Like, utopically, in a utopia, you release them, but I said it before, we're not in a utopia, it's the real life. So
Yep.
zoos tend to exist because of man. That's the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate cages too. Like
Yeah.
for example, the squirrel that we have here that we got this summer, we keep his cage open and keep it hanging.
I love to see him running around before in the Skype video.
Yeah, yeah. My battery was dying because I got an old phone, so it looked
That's
like.
alright, man. I'm so happy for you and your squirrel.
Yeah, yeah. They're just a high consciousness animal, so they're pretty neat. And
I
I
love
guess back in
squirrels.
the day, they used to be the
Yeah.
most. They were called America's pet back before the 1920s, and they were more prevalent. Every household pretty much had a pet squirrel, and they were in all the pet stores, I guess you would say.
You know
But
what happened in
Yeah.
London? In London, I think the what you say is gray one, and they ate all the brown one. And
oh,
in the south of France, in the pine trees, related to Tartaria, Phoenicia, everything. The
yeah,
pineal gland, the pine trees. I love going there since I'm a kid. I go to the pine trees, and they are brown like yours, Creole, like the American
Yeah,
brown.
yeah,
exactly like
But
in Denmark. Yeah.
yeah, and in London they're being ruthlessly being killed, I think, by the grey one. Yeah, if I don't say
Also
absolutely
in
not.
right.
Central Park in New York,
Yeah.
the exact same thing is happening.
Okay. Wow, that's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the
I guess this.
squirrel is actually it's a symbol of
Racist.
higher
Racist.
consciousness and learning because the squirrel eats nuts and is also the tale of how to store for
Oh
your
wow. Yeah.
hibernation, right? So it's a lot
Yep,
about intelligence and about planning. And
yep,
the nut is a microcosmic natural symbol, let's say, of the brain. Because
yep.
like let's
Wow.
take a walnut. It looks exactly like the brain, and what is it good for? The brain.
Yep, that's exact. And if you look at the zodiac in the animal, the squirrel would be a very good representation of the sign Libra. You can see the Aries sign rising in its nose. That it has a very Aries, the ram style of a nose face, high energy brain, and that's represented by the brain. You know, the cardinal fire.
Right.
The that initial, thoughts, and then that gives you desire and feeling to do something, or you get a feeling, it gives you a thought, and then you get into action. And it's all very Aries in the brain. That's why the house system of Earth starts at 0 degrees Aries, and it works its way around. And you take.
And you mentioned Pan before, which I find very interesting, because you both have Aquarius and you have Capricorn there. And we found out earlier that Aquarius is angled to Tartaria in Asia, and Capricorn. Remind me, where's Capricorn angled to?
Well, I've heard a lot of stuff that Capricorn represents the North America, NA.
Ding, ding, ding.
And, yep. So the land of the goat, and that's why Islam is, they got to slay the goat. And it's very much, that's why the evil West. And it's all a biblical allegory. Is for the brain. It's telling you that the West, which is the intellect, needs to die so that the right brain, the 90%, can come through. And
and do you know what? If you translate to go west into Turkic, you get a word which is synonymous with death. To go west, death.
Ooh.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
And then if you look at sun worship,
what America needs to do, or what the higher aspect of, if you look at, I remember a while back in our Discord thing, I posted a shot of, it was an old zodiac, and in the place of Capricorn, it had a unicorn, which is really showing you the white horse, which is Pegasus, of course. And Pegasus is that long-term memory. Which is associated. How do memories get stored? Through fear, through either extremes. You only log things.
What is the necessary antecedent to having knowledge? It's memory.
Right. So our memory, this is very much, when they say changes are going to come from the West, it's going to be an explosion of the long-term memory. And you're going to see it ripple through things like government and religion, because all these people are going to start, they're going to know what a swastika is. They're going to know what, why the clock is 1 through 12. I mean, it's not going to be in the shadows anymore. It's all going to be very scientific, very matter of fact. It's very much this way. I mean, you're going to be able to, we live in a future where, I mean, instead of walking around looking at a phone, you're going to walk around and you're going to see people's auras. You're going to see where they've been through lifetimes. You're going to see what color they are. And you can already see it. You can already know in some terms.
I remember the first class of my philosophy studies. One of our professors came in before standing in front of like a very large, wide chalkboard, right? And I remember just when he walked across it, I saw his yellow aura follow him. And I was like, holy, because it was so distinct. And there was a girl next to me. She was also seeing it. And she was like, what the? Because that was the first time she ever saw one. And I had seen ones before by really like trying to look hard. But this was so, it was so apparent. It just sprang out into the room. And
you can see, you can see the way that, even if you can't actually see the aura color with your eyes in a clairescent,
you can feel it.
You can see the way it incorporates and manifests their own physical reality. I mean, you can see the strain they might carry in their brain and their head, or the stress. You can see that in their makeup, in their tone, in their voice, in the way they
see. You can feel
the way they carry themselves. I mean, it's all one big package of energy, and it expresses through all spectrums at the same time. So, I mean, it's all, so one tiny little pebble in there can ripple through spectrums. Like, for example, right now, I'm sitting at home and some people came home and made the dogs start barking. So, in my head, I very much like quietness and silence to be able to concentrate on the fine things. And, it ripples through everything, and it's, I got to get back to, ground it, get rid of it. Okay, go ahead and get back in that center, and sent her. Yep. Yeah, man. It's good chat. So many chat. Dive into,
the Radio 5 was good. Brittany made so much good research on volcanoes and submarine volcanoes, the resets, and talking with Xertus about intraterrestrial, intradimensional beings, stuff like that. So the Radio 5 was good. This Radio 6 was good. I hope everybody has enjoyed as much as I did.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great. I mean, it's a good triangle of energy here. It's good bouncing off you guys, and you got an awesome perspective over there. I think, we both live in, similar cultures in a way, but also
Yeah.
in terms of oppression and the way we get molded and shaped. We bring in some pretty awesome views, and it's strong. It's good to be able to validate. Really is what it is. It's just validation. It's knowing that you're not in this alone. It's a giant network of everybody's got what's your calling. What do you get stirred with inside? What speaks to you? Is it the fireplaces in Tartaria? Is it the foundations? Is it the basements? Where are you being called inside your own self to look at? What do you have in there that people need to know? And we all have, through all of our experience in this system we call Earth, we have many, many lifetimes of many different roles. I'm sure people that have made it this far in this life into what we call the ponderings of Tartaria, and it's what it is. These people, I'm sure, in their past experience here have been killed many times for the truth, for speaking out. So we're hitting a pretty neat pocket of physical experience from here forward where maybe we don't get killed this time. Maybe we get to actually, join up again and put this golden age, put this unity back on the table,
It's more interesting than watching football, in my humble opinion. So I keep doing it.
You don't need to be humble about that. I don't think too many of our listeners are going to defend football to the death here.
It's alright games,
But
games. Just too much money and too much fuss about it.
Yeah, just think about the ridiculousness of a guy shooting a ball into a net or between two poles and earning so much money in the meantime. It's ridiculous. And it must be kind of like when you're done and dusted,
like slaves,
and when you have earned most of your money on like doing that, it must feel in a way kind of weird or empty or hollow. Just to have earned your money by kicking a ball, like
millions. Is like you rent them. It's like they're players, like you rent them for millions. It's a huge money factory. This stuff, and to distract people, give them what the Romans said or whatever they were. Give them games and bread. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, bread and circuses, exactly.
Yeah, bread and circuses, right.
Yeah, that is exactly where most of us came from in this community. That type of information, like because we have gone so far down what could be perceived as a rabbit hole, right? It seems infinitely way back in the past.
Yes, I tend to agree. That was a good show. I was happy to be here.
Oh, well, we're not quite done yet. We still have 30 minutes left.
30?
Yeah, 30, yeah. But if one of you has to leave, that is also all right.
Good. I'm good right there.
What say you, Peter?
I don't know.
Is Peter here or did he leave us?
I don't know.
Oh,
he just came back.
Hey guys, sorry, my phone kind of died there.
That's fine.
No problem, Peter. We were just wondering what happened because we still have half an hour left. Will you be able to make that, or?
I think so. Yeah, I'm gonna try.
That's cool.
I'm having some battery issues on my phone, and we'll do the best we can. But I'm gonna just put it on listen for a while. I think speaking actually will drain it, so I'm gonna let some charge build up.
Okay. Yep. Let's go back into that pan point, because I find it very interesting to stress that pan, which is normally a symbol perceived as being quite evil or being part
Celt
of
mythology,
the
right? In fact,
yeah,
it's
like
believed to be
sex
Greek,
mythology.
but Celt mythology. Yeah, that's very interesting to say it.
Right. And I would say that there is a kind of smear campaign going on where they're taking Baphomet, like Lavette
Mhm.
says, and inserting him, being the Jupiterian idol, inserting him into a Saturnian Uranus quality. And that is because Jupiter overtook Saturn in the age of Pisces. He rules Pisces. And this whole age is about his inverse qualities of deception and
Mhm.
also lust and gluttony. That is what drives the world system, I'd say. That is how they
Interesting.
gain their energy from us by having these sins within the masses, basically, or these vices.
Yeah.
And Pan is part man and part goat.
Yeah.
And the only place you find that on the wheel of astrology is in Aquarius and in Capricorn. Capricorn the goat and Aquarius the man. And when you take those two symbols and put them together, you get Pan. And that is quite interesting to know. Hugo, could you go on mute just for a second?
Sorry, man.
No, no problem. So,
Yeah.
so
Pan is a
yeah,
very, I love, this is really one of the key things that got me into astrology so much lately was about a year and some change back was looking at Pan, looking at Capricorn and Aquarius as a whole, and looking at that as, because if you look at the zodiac, you pretty much get Saturn with having rulership of Capricorn and having rulership of Aquarius, and then on the opposite side you would have Cancer and Leo, which would be the sun and the moon, or the moon and the sun in that order. So
right.
this is very much, if you think of take a cell, and now we're going to go through in our heads the splitting of the cell into from 1 to 2. And if we look at the Aquarius and Capricorn, and then across we have an X. If we place an X across, you would have Leo and Cancer over there, and then so this relationship right here is very, very key to our whole system. So so let's look real quick at what are these signs. So we have what are the elements of them. So we have fixed air, and we have cardinal earth, and then across from cardinal earth we have cardinal water, and then we have fixed fire. And so fire and air are an awesome partnership. They represent positive forces, and then earth and water are both negative forces. They love each other, and they are considered, they're sextant from each other, so they're of 60 degrees. And
Okay.
they're also, when they're their own selves, of course, they're trine. That's why you have each element is, if you go 120 degrees from each sign, like, so for example, from Taurus to Virgo is 120 degrees, Virgo to Capricorn is 120 degrees, and that makes up a trine, and that would be the earth trine, being mutable, cardinal, and fixed on the earth. So when I look at Pan, I look at the beginning. So where do things, and what happens is that carbon or cardinal earth or ether are, in my book, all pretty much the same thing. And then also consciousness, you could add that to it. So what we call carbon, the unseen qualities of carbon are really consciousness, and consciousness is where it actually comes from, and carbon is Saturn's castration, adding temporalness in a body. Carbon is subject to radioactive decay. So very much in the beginning, what we have is, I think, the grand man, Aquarius. We have the original beginning, which is where Uranus rules, exalts. So that would be the original giver of consciousness, not subject to man. It's above man. It's Uranus. It's outside of 1 through 7. It's beyond the 7 chakras. The 7th stops at the pineal gland of the brain, and then you hit pineal striatus through the fornax of the brain, and you shoot a straight line of light up to pretty much Polaris, and then you pretty much are manifesting as this just being of light and with no center and a circumference that is everywhere. It's I don't know. I mean, obviously I don't get to walk around in a consciousness like that all the time, but if you try and you try to just really go inside and be in some of those areas of stillness, you can start to, it's all practice. You got to play with it to be able to get it to, start working. I mean, it's very much something you constantly carry too, and you are both examples of people that you don't need to go meditate to calm down. You don't need to go do that to relax and to listen
Right.
and to something, because you carry that with you. It's a constant focusing and knowing of what you are. And Pan in itself, if you think of us as light, if you think of something so fixed air, so that tells you where this whole system, in my opinion, is going to get created from. And air is the air sac. So it's the space that we play in. It's why nothing actually ever touches anything, because everything is surrounded in an air sac, which is really electricity when we look at Aquarius. So electricity is going to be the beginning of electrical light. Its opposite, where it shoots across, is going to be Leo, fixed fire, where it comes out into the visible sun. So Aquarius is going to be the unseen, dark aspect of light, 90%. And then we're going to have the 10% visible that comes out in Leo across, which is where the sun rules, which is really the lower nature.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
So I have a question, actually.
Go ahead.
I can. Yeah, so all the ancients, like the ancient civilization, they represented very well the animals of the astrology around the circle, and in the middle, some sort of black sun's being, or a black sun, actual black sun.
Yeah, the 13th.
Yeah,
Yep.
but I want to ask you, how do you think the ancients knew about astrology at this point, about even the animals, the location of the astrology? You guys know more about me on that. So
one thing that I've found that really opened my eyes to astrology, knowing that it was a really the highest science out there. It's the breakdown of what does the eternal do when it comes into duality. So what does a circle do when it comes into the world of the square? How do you break down a 360-degree arc into pieces? And you do it in a 1 through 12 fashion, which is why the clock starts at 12 and goes to 1, 2, 3, etc. So pretty much what we have here is a division of 12 that explains the science of light and its visible aspects. When you look and see what we call the celestial bodies, you're looking at aspects of visible light, which is really sound. It's the world of sound. Anything you can see and lay eyes on is vibrating in sound, and it's creating that vibration back and forth around a center, is creating a cell wall, which is the basis of visible reality, is the unseen coming in to be seen, and
I think
light slowing down. That's all it is.
They were connected, I think, to some beings that show them the way. That's a possibility, since there is in Thailand the Ongshan, and also in China I have jade on me. Perhaps it's more recent, but the ones in the museum show really a lot, and the coins show electric universe, everything. What we are talking about, the astrology, and this very old Ongshan civilization knew about all of this.
That shows. Sorry to cut you off, Hugo. I got a quote that I've read in it's an Alan Leo work, and Alan Leo is a very big astrologer, part of the Theosophical movement of the late 1800s forward there, with Madame Blavatsky and all them. They very much looked at the liberal arts as the high arts, and they included astrology, and then geometry would be the top art. So everything's going to come from geometry, and then the first thing underneath geometry is the naming of everything, which is astrology. It says in Genesis that in the beginning was the word, or the logos, which is really the mind, the thoughts behind it, the unseen, the fast stuff that you can't see. The intent, the intuition, the mind, the feelings, all the stuff you can't see that is light. That's all you. That's all the eternal stuff. And then, so pretty much, trying to think where I was going to go with that, but Let's get back to the
But
pan thing real quick. So the
yeah,
cardinal
because I
nature.
had something I wanted to add on the pan thing.
So
You
as
mentioned that you
Vikings, as
have the sun and the moon opposite. That you have
right.
that in
So
with
let's
Cancer,
look
right?
at
But if you
yeah.
but I just
Let's
wanted to add this, Peter.
okay.
If you look at the Freemasonic checkerboard floor, right?
Uh-huh.
The main symbol, you have two pillars, Jagan and Boaz, which is the sun and the moon, and in the middle you have a star, which would be
Yep.
that cosine
Saturn.
of Pan, Saturn, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So
The
that is
central pillar.
allegorically representative of what you just outlined with the wheel and the opposite nature from Pan to the sun and the moon.
Absolutely. That's the
Mhm.
three pillars, because that's why Saturn rules the 2 and the 1 over there. That's the whole story of that is behind the golden age and the age of Pan is that it's 2 ages in 1. It's two of the 12, which is 1/6. And that's neat because that's the whole hexagonal
Oh, yeah,
system.
it's called the age that never ends, and it's not
Right.
because it doesn't end, it's because there is no
That's the
felt
time for it.
transition between Aquarius and Capricorn. It's the same ruler, so you won't feel too much.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And to me, I think when I look at Aquarius as fixed air, I look at that as the heaven, as the knowing age. Of course, we're going to be going through the age of knowing, where we move past the age of belief, which would have been Pisces, and we move into knowing through the
Oh,
self.
yeah.
Because if you look at Aquarius, it represents the individual, and it's also the 11th sign, 2 pillars. It's a 1 and a 1.
Right.
And it's also, if you're going 1 through 9 from Aries to Capricorn, it would be the next one outside of the perfect 10. So really what you did here is you took Aquarius and you divided it. You took the 2, which the original 2 is an 11. It's not the number 2. It's 2 1s and 11 split. So you have 2 I-beams. And I think that our sister sun system would represent this in terms of the physical, that there's 2 sounds. It's just really the whole nature of duality and polarity. You can't play in polarity unless you choose one of the aspects of polarity to be herein. For example, and that could change through the ages. We could have plenty of experience where we're androgynous beings, or we don't even have a body and we're just pure light or etheric or what have you. But the system we're in right now, everything is very dualistic. It's very much the middle ground. Things grow in the physical. It's a
Yeah.
green. It's a choice. It's a crossroads. And then I was going to say we got heaven with Aquarius, then we got Earth with Cardinal Earth Capricorn. The procession works backwards. So we hit this Aquarius first. We're coming from Pisces, and then boom, we're going to be working on some of that Cardinal Earth.
So
It's going to be.
belief is the enemy of knowledge. So
You
that's good
can't
to me.
do, yeah, and you can't you can't be the Earth. You can't be at the top of the mountain in the physical until you know, and you got to go through the knowing first, and that's what we're about to
Well,
do.
Yeah.
let me pose you a mind bender when it comes to belief and knowledge. Let's say that you say that belief and knowledge are separate things, and I say
Right.
they're not.
No,
Okay, so
they're
I could
connected.
say
Connected.
I have an example that is going to outline the problem. Because
Okay.
let's say that I say something I know absolutely which is true, right? My name is Victor. Now in the
Okay.
next sentence, I proceed to say, I do not believe that. Can you see the problem? You need to believe what you know. It's a necessary antecedent.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you tend to make up your own belief system when you're researching
It
at
could
a
be
point,
It is false belief. It is wrong
false
belief or
belief. Yeah,
incorrect belief that
I
is
know.
the
Yeah, I
enemy of
know. It
knowing.
happened
Yeah.
to me. I learned it the hard way. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd say a
Yeah.
belief is kind of it's a leap of faith. It's a prerequisite, but let's look at it real quick from the perspective of the Bach saga. We can be the leaf,
Yeah.
right?
Let's bring in
And
that.
we could be temporary, but of course the leaf falls, right? So, but the leaf would never truly die in a way. It would decompose and just become part of the soil. But in a sense, we're told, if you interpret the Bible in a very spiritualistic Greek mythological way, we're told somewhere, I think in late Matthew, that Jesus says, "You are the branch and I am the vine." So what happens in between the fall and in between the spring? What lasts? The branch lasts through. The branch, in my opinion, here is what I use the term to know. It's the thing that can overcome, go through all the tests and the barriers. But in a sense, it had to start from a single leaf. I mean, you can't get a branch until the tree grows and you start the whole photosynthesis process. I mean, there's almost an eternal initial gift of sprout, of spring, and then, you know, you go through, you have parts of yourself that go through seasons that are changeable depending upon your set of experiences, which is your variables, your environment around you. So I don't know. I mean, it's got the word lie in the word belief. I mean, it's just like the word phone has phony and it's shaped in a rectangle. I mean, it's got all the etymologies there. You know, but you know, it says be the lie. So, you know, belief is be lie F, and F is the sixth letter. F represents Saturn. So it's neat. You know, I'm not told. I just have a hard time with the word. I have a personal bias with it. That's all. I mean,
you could use other words than belief. You could use some sort of form of credit, perhaps, or faith, or whatever. But I just want to remind the audience who we are talking with today. My name is, of course, Victor B, and I am your host. And together with me, I have Peter, and you are known in the community by what name, Peter?
So I mean, I pretty much have only flirted. I've never had any kind of YouTube thing or like that. But I've got on Discord, Pierre Tormi, and then also I've had Retep Esrom, Peter Morse, and Raw Hand of God on Facebook of friends that I've been, you know, I've had many friends through handles there. But you know, other than that, I'm kind of nowadays just only down for what the universe sends my way. And today, you know, it happened to be a 2 through 4 chat, and you know, it seemed awesome. And I don't know, I just try to keep it real easy going nowadays.
You do a great job, man. You have a great perspective on a lot of things. So,
man.
Great speaking to you.
You guys also, you know.
That's I wanted to ask Hugo the same. So Hugo, who are you and where can we find you?
My YouTube is Hugo with a H. Hugo, Someguy, 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 Someguy.
Yes.
And it's just.
So Hugo, Someguy on YouTube.
And I do all my pictures are for me, and I share, and also I share my own views of it. And the next video will be about Versailles. I have a lot of footage, Paris also, and the Phoenician heritage of it. And I wanted to come back quickly to what we talked about recently, to the ancient race, how they knew astrology. I have an idea on this ancient culture. They represent sometimes non-human beings, so perhaps their knowledge is linked to these beings, also represented in those maps, linked to this black sun. So I wanted to end with this. But I do both stuff. I do cities, so architecture, if you will. So I do Paris, Amsterdam, Versailles, and Paris I will do it soon. And also I do Petra and many hidden archaeological sites that is not touristic at all. Some I didn't share yet, so this channel is growing. So yes, Hugo, Someguy. That's me.
And soon Hugo and I and 13th Monkey, who is a Starfort expert, are going to take a very close look at Paris, and we will show Hugo and the rest of the world, of course, just how crazy this Starfort situation around Paris is, because you have around the city itself, you had 33 kilometers of fortification wall
and tunnels. Very interesting.
Also that. Tunnels, but also around the center of Paris, you have, I think, 15 satellite readout starforts, which are still very much visible today. So it's like a ring, 2 rings of starforts around Paris, which is also 33 kilometers of fortification wall. It's absolutely insane.
So you go Someguy definitely on the starfort very soon.
We'll show you where to find them and where to go, and you'll get a better hang of you get a better feel for them and what to look for and what is interesting to research about them when you
Yeah.
go out to your camera.
The
Because that will
13th
be
monkey is from Holland, so there is a lot of star forts in Holland and in
shout out to
Denmark.
Mike.
Yeah, shout out to him. And also you in Denmark, there is a little less, I think.
Yeah, we
Oh,
definitely have a distinct lack of star forts in Denmark compared with the rest of Europe, especially
right.
Germany and
Yeah,
France and Italy and Spain, and those countries are really star forty, let's say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just France alone, we have over 1,200 maps of different star forts just
To
in
the
France,
mountains, to
apart from that.
high up in the mountains. So
Wow.
Yeah,
really
from
crazy.
high up in the mountains to by the coast, by
Yeah,
rivers, by lakes, close to
I
volcanoes.
think you traveled in one of them. You talk in a Radio Tartary Part 2, I think, or the Part 1.
Yeah, we went to Javia in Spain to visit Mike Wilkerson, aka Stellium7. Shout out to Stellium7 on YouTube. The
Yeah,
most crazy or the best Titan researcher ever to has walked this earth in our modern era, at least. And Mike, he showed us a four-pointed star fort near Javia in 1,500 meters height. It was close to nothing. It was in the middle of nowhere on the side of a mountain. And when we went into the basement of the star fort, we could hear running water, and there was very modern-like cement formations within the
yeah.
star fort, and
And you
completely rounded.
you
Yeah.
also seen something in the mountains, right? With snow when you've been skiing. One
Oh
star
yeah,
fort. Yeah.
yeah. On the top of La Rosière Peak by Val d'Isère in
Mm.
France, in Le France, there is a very interesting star fort at I think it's 2,900 meters of elevation, and you have bastions just going into a straight drop. So you
Wow.
definitely don't need star bastions for no dead zones
Yeah.
advantages there because no one is going to go up there
Yeah, that's
because
good.
it's a straight drop.
Crazy. And by the
Yeah,
way,
it's absolutely.
you talked about petrified titans, right?
Yeah,
So
Mike Williams
the thing is
guy. Yeah.
really I think is people speculate about either titans or either huge trees. Sometimes it looks like trees, sometimes it looks like titans, so it
Yeah,
confuses a
but
lot of people.
you should have both, right? If you have
You have
one
both,
of
of course, of course.
because
In Petra, I think there is a mix, but the most visible is wood. So yeah, and it's also built and constructs stuff. So yeah, Petra is really interesting. I'm
well,
glad I have a lot of pictures of it.
right.
Yeah,
Well, we only have approximately 5 to 6 minutes left, so I'll just give you a heads up on that. I wanted
yeah,
to say that I just uploaded 3 hours ago to my YouTube channel, the Buggeman.
yeah,
So
exactly. On the
yeah, on the
Morse.
Moorish connections, yeah.
Yeah,
But
Nice.
also this radio show is going to be uploaded there, so you can listen back to it and download it and save it and whatnot. Because
yeah. I'm
Peter's
really happy. It was my
contribution,
first radio, so thank you
right?
for receiving me, Victor. Thank you.
Yeah.
Of course. It's been a pleasure, and I know
Yeah.
you've been doing podcasts of your own, so this is not entirely new to you as well. But
I
on a
was on my
radio,
own. Yes, exactly. I was on my own, and now I know a lot better. So it's really cool to connect today. Yeah, very
Yeah. No.
much.
Yeah.
well,
Same
I
here. It's
thank
my
you for that.
first one over here, so it's
Yeah, bro.
yeah, it's nice. It's good to talk and just kind of like I said, bounce stuff off each other. I was just gonna add real quick, just to tie up a loose end from earlier on my side. I was gonna mention that you had asked a question about the ancients in terms of astrology and
Yes,
how far back have they studied this, and then so I pretty much
and
something real
the
strong.
creatures, the non-human beings also, because they represented them very
Right.
well.
So I remember recently I came across a quote from Alan.
Whoa, we can't hear you.
Did something happen to your mic, Peter, or did you lose your juice now? He probably
Perhaps
lost his juice
power.
because he's not saying muted, he's saying paused or something. It's showing something different.
My guess is he
Um,
will come back in 1
Can you
minute.
hear me?
So, Oh,
Oh
right.
yeah, now there
My
he
bad,
is.
my bad. I had a phone call hit my phone. My bad, guys. Anyways, real quick, I'll get this out.
Yeah.
So this book states that at the time of the writing of the Greek mythologies, interpretations from the Egyptian canon, that
Or Celts mythology then.
the Chaldean astrologers were known to have been studying and honing in the science that was passed down to the Egyptians and the Greeks for 473,000 years, is what this quote said.
Yes.
And it had, so I was pretty blown away that, I know we all have a lot of different theories and ideas on what time is, how many revolutions, and, patterns change through time too. But I know that in terms of some of the roots of the astrology that we have right now, which isn't in its sense the whole truth. It's just an astrology for our time. That's all astrology is you have a perspective of you're the center in your world, and you look around and you start interpreting from the center. So that center has been a little shifty. So what's been written through the ages is always, you got to know how to read it. You got to look at what perspective they were sitting in, and there's deep cycles that are unseen, that are very slow, that are very fine and very particular, that the very patient and the knowers, they tracked all these things and all this geometry and all these shapes, and when you get down to it, this is really some of the oldest stuff out there. It's really the whole Bible, in my interpretation, is just the story of the stars. All the world's religions are all enacting out in their own flavor and language just what's going on in the heavens above us. It's as above, so below. If you look up and you see a full moon, look in your body, there's going to be a full moon. If you look up and you see Saturn and Jupiter conjuncting in the sign of Capricorn late this fall, in 2020, then you can know that that's going to be happening inside your body as well. So you can learn to study what all these things are, what they mean, the deep symbolism. You have to know from within your own self, and when you know, you can look to see what's happening, and then that can help you explain what's going on inside you and around you. So it's powerful. It's not for the meek.
Right.
It would take, it's a very long study. It's a very in-depth, slow, patient absorption of information, because it's just so thick, heavy. And it gets easier, though. You can't put too much stress on it. Just try to enjoy it. Don't do it if you're not ready. Don't do it if you're not truly curious. If you're not truly curious yet, just stick on the fringes. Do some stuff. Do what's calling inside you.
Yeah.
Go in the
Well,
forest.
I need
Go in the
to,
pine
guys.
forest.
We have 1 minute left now, so
Okay.
so
Victor, close
I'm
it up.
rounding out now, and
It's a pleasure.
yeah, it's been a pleasure, guys. I just need to say to the audience here that Revolution Radio, which you're listening to right now, is
Yes.
listener supported. So please go into freedomslips.com or revolution.radio
That's the
and
one.
find a way to please go and donate. We have a Patreon, and there are also other ways to donate to the radio, because without the listener, there would be no Radio Tartary or no Revolution Radio. So please go in and find a way to donate.
And thanks to
support.
them and to Victor and
it's all about.
Peter.
That's what it's all about. We don't do this for each other. It's all about getting triggers inside the people to go off and to just keep the good fight going forward.
Right.
Thanks to everybody. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Hugo,
With those words, we have 30 seconds left. So thank you guys for joining me, Hugo, Someguy, and Peter Morse, who is known throughout obscure Facebook communities, let's say.
many names.
Many names, but Peter, I'm sure people will be very psyched to know that I had you on, and just to listen to your voice, I know a lot of people will be stoked, because you are definitely up there for a lot of people I know. So yeah, guys, with those words, I will end the call in about 10 seconds. So thank you guys for coming again.
Much love. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna add this on a YouTube channel called Flight Risk as well, so you can check it out over there if anybody's wondering. Also,
Flight Risk.
Yep. That's the handle on YouTube. It's my special person's channel, so we're gonna add it over there.
Nice, man. Let's
thank you guys.
Bring that up.
I'm call now. Thank you guys. Cheers.
Lovely evening to y'all. Bye.
Bye.